It on the orange box, you could have got it for $2.
I did get it for $2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got all the Half-Life 2 stuff, and that's all that really matters. But I still got to be Half-Life 1. I'm still on it right now because it's hard.
Yeah, sometimes old games are harder.
Yeah, but that one, like, specifically is...
I'm sorry, those of you that just came in earlier, I did make hard copies of 10.15 and 10.13. Again, you don't have to copy over your work to me, but I would like you to have a copy so that your notebook paper makes sense. Doesn't mean you have to get up and get them right now, but you should probably grab them at some point today.
I have this. I haven't even done the sex list. It's a separate sheet. That's fine.
Are you grading the notes part or just like the questions? Because I didn't do the notes, but I did all the questions.
How'd you do the questions without the notes?
I just watched the video for the notes and then I just did the questions.
Oh, you just watched it. Okay, that's fine now.
Okay.
Can I get
In
a
the
Jolly
future, I'd like
Rancher?
you to do the notes.
Okay.
Can I get a Jolly Rancher?
Did you turn in your work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what it's there for.
Oh, I didn't know.
Okay, guys, 2 o'clock is, I'm assuming that they're going to have bells turned off here. I don't know what the rest of the schedule is for this afternoon. My guess would be that they're just going to cut fifth period short because they know I've only seen you once in the last month, so why not cut today short also? But we need to get going here. So last time I saw you, I told you I was only going to take up one assignment today. Again, I'm going to be very transparent with that so that you make sure you bring the right thing and have the right thing completely finished for homework. So that was the 10.14 assignment. So most of you guys are already bringing that up here, but if I don't have yours, please make sure your name is on it and come give it to me. I will give that back to you today because the next thing I need to remind you of is I said to try to give you some more assessment points and to make sure you're moving forward in the right way. I will have a short couple question mini quiz for you next class, and I'm going to tell you what it is over. So I told you last class as well, but I just want to make sure that there's no surprises. I'm not trying to surprise you. I'm just trying to make sure that you're moving along here. Okay, so 2 of the points on Wednesday's mini quiz will be asking you to show me that you have memorized the series expansion. So I have the ... dots for you, but you need to be able to give me these first 4 terms for those 4 that need to be memorized. Hopefully you've memorized those already, but that's 2 points on the mini quiz that I'm just straight up telling you what they are. Another 2 points will be a question exactly from your 10.14 homework. So any question that you struggled with, if you look back at those, it'll be word for word exactly the same thing. So no surprise there. If you struggle with it in your homework and you review it, then you shouldn't struggle with it if it shows up on the quiz. And then the 5th 1-point question is the multiple choice question that's a past AP question. So that's the only one I'm not telling you what it is, but it's only 1 of the 5 points. So any questions about the mini quiz? And I believe I have that spelled out pretty well over here on upcoming assignments if you need to check the class website. So I don't know that affects your studying too much, but first thing I see you on Wednesday, that's what we're going to do, 5 points. Should be a gimme, but it does require you to look it back over a little bit. Okay, the second thing is we will not be in this classroom on Wednesday. So every year when they do ELPA testing, they like to use this hallway because, I don't know, it's easy to shut down and there's not random people walking by. So on Wednesday, I will be in there Tuesday and Wednesday, but our class will only be in there on Wednesday. It is room 2107, and I already posted it in Google Classroom last week for you. So if you try to come to this class on Wednesday, you will not even be allowed in the hallway. Check Google Classroom to remember where you're supposed to be. Okay. All that okay? Okay. So what I want to do with you guys today is similar to what we talked about or how we did class last time. Again, I'm assuming that they're not going to adjust the bell schedule today other than to make 5th period a little bit shorter. So the next one we're going to look at is 10.15. So if you were pretty good at 10.14, I feel like 10.15 it was quite a bit easier. It's a lot of the same stuff, with the one exception being sometimes you take a derivative and sometimes you integrate. So after you see a couple of each of those, that kind of flows and makes sense. Again, this is one that I did make a hard copy for you up there. So what I'd like to do is just very quickly maybe ask you guys for a question, maybe one of the first 4 or so. Oh, some of you guys were asking for an update about my whatever the thing is that they removed from me. I don't remember what it's called. Appendix, there you go. Some of y'all wanted an update on that. When I saw y'all on Wednesday, I'd mentioned I had a doctor's appointment on Thursday to hopefully get my pump taken out. I still have my pump, unfortunately. They did a scan on me on Thursday, and it turned out that I was still bleeding inside or still collecting blood inside because my pump has been blocked, so it hasn't been pumping anything. So apparently you're supposed to clear it out sometimes, but nobody told me to do that, and they didn't give me the stuff to do that until Thursday. So I've got the pump for at least another 10 to 14 days. So every time I think it's about over, it's not. But again, I don't really complain too much just because I still feel a million times better than I did when it all happened. But I'm still a little sore, so give me a little bit of mercy here. Okay, so 10.15, again, it's about these power series. In fact, you still need to have these same things memorized. The same things I'm asking you to memorize for 10.14 are useful in 10.15. So, is there, just as a quick refresher, just kind of talk about the general process. I think it would be good to maybe look at, I don't know, questions 1, 2, either one of those, if anyone has a preference. Did anybody find question 1 or question 2 harder than the other? No preference? Okay, then I'm going to pick number 2. Again, just kind of as a quick little refresher so I can try to compare and contrast the 10.14. And then I will continue to open it up to more and more questions. So even if you didn't struggle till the end, I can try to help you there. Okay, so question 2 gives us this series. It wants us to write the first 4 non-zero terms and the general term. So most of these questions have multiple parts. Oh, and it wants us to find the derivative of f. So if this is f, find the derivative. Now this, at first you might think that this is going to be kind of complicated, but remember x is the only variable here. N is just like a number. It's just like a constant. We don't have to do anything special with it. So to take this derivative, it's really just power rule. You're going to bring the power down, bring the 2 to n down, and then lower the power by 1. Now it's 2n minus 1. And that's it. It's just power rule, but just make sure you're only doing it to x. Again, n is just a number, so it's like it's not really a constant because it moves along, but it's treated like a constant. The only thing in your notes that they recommended that you do is that you practice reducing this, because it's multiple choice, they're going to reduce this sometimes. So remember, n factorial means n times 1 less than that, and then 1 less than that, dot, dot, dot. So if I cancel out this n with this n as a multiple choice question, they might make it look like this. But what's another way to say all of this mess? Good. So they're probably going to write it like that. So even though these are equivalent, make a habit out of reducing this n into the n factorial. since they tend to do that. Okay, so there's the first part of the question. Now write the first 4 non-zero terms. Actually, here's the general term also. So that's already done. The general term is the series with the end stuff, the generic formula. Yeah.
Isn't it 2 also?
2 also.
Like 2x, 2 on non-spell.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't carry this down, did I? This 2 should be a 2 there. Thank you. Okay, and then if you want that's the hardest part. The first 4 non-zero terms, you're just going to use this series and plug it in like we did when we first started series, when that was kind of new for everybody, or for most people. First, you're going to plug in 1 for n, and you're going to get x to the first times 2 over 0 factorial. What is 0 factorial equal to? Very good. 0 factorial is actually 1. I can see why you might think it's 0, but 0 factorial is 1 and 1 factorial is 1. Somebody in my first period asked me why that's the case, and I don't remember the proof offhand, but I will be looking for that in the near future. So, okay, then plug in n equals, so this is where n equals 1. Okay, then plug in 2 for n. You get 2 times x to the third over 1 factorial, plus plug in 3 for n. You get 2 times x to the 5th over 2 factorial. So 2 over 2, we might as well reduce that. That's easy. And for the 4th term, plug in n equals 4. You get 2 times x to the 7th over 3 factorial, which is really just 6. So I guess I'll just reduce that and call it 1/3. So if you have this general term, it's not hard to list out the first 4 terms. Just plug in 1 for n for the first term, 2 for n for the second term, 3 for n for the third term. And then you're done. So to me, this is what kind of differentiates 10.15 from 10.14. 10.14 doesn't ask you to do any derivatives or integration. But again, the derivatives are just basically power rule. It looks way more complicated, but I just did power rule, brought the power down, lowered the power by 1. And when we need to integrate, we're just going to integrate one term at a time. Raise the power by 1, divide by the new power. Raise the power by 1, divide by the new power. So again, you got to do a few of each of those before you're going to feel comfortable with it. But so, of the ones you had tried, which ones would you like a reminder on, or just need some help on, let's say from the first 8 questions? That would be like the front and back of the first page. Actually, I need to put in attendance, so let you look at that for a second. Put this in. Olivia's out. Okay, anything from the first 8 before I open it up to other questions? Number 3? Sure. And number 3 is one of, actually it's the only question that I marked as one that I hesitated a little bit on. So for whatever reason, we'll figure it out when we talk about it. But number 3 had some parts that were a little bit harder to me. Okay, so the first part is not a problem. Write the power series for cosine of x to the sixth. So this is where you need to be comfortable with 10.14. If you know what the cosine power series is, what's the first term of it? 1. And then you can remember cosine is an even function, so it's x squared over 2 factorial plus x to the 4th over 4 factorial minus x to the 6th over 6 factorial. It's all the even stuff. And it alternates, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus. And if you know what cosine x is equal to, then cosine x to the 6th is the exact same thing. It's just everywhere there was an x, you're replacing with x to the 6th. So x to the 6th squared, power to a power you multiply, x to the 6th to the 4th, okay, so there is cosine of x to the 6th. Okay, I'm going to change this for just a second here, because over here I'm about to do cosine of t to the 6th, but of course if it's t to the 6th, it just means all these x's are really t's. But that's what they're going to ask me to integrate, so let me change that. Okay, so I've got the first 4 terms, but I haven't done the integration part yet. So I'm going to come back and evaluate it from 0 to x. But to integrate this is the same as integrating all these terms. So just integrate one term at a time. What's the antiderivative of 1? Well, in this case, t. But yeah. And then you're just undoing power rule. Raise the power by 1, divide by the new power. Raise the power by 1, divide by the new power. Raise the power by 1, divide by the new power. Again, it looks way more complicated, but that's all you're really doing. You're undoing the power rule. And that's why it's not too bad after you practice a few of them. Now, if I want to evaluate from 0 to x, plugging in 0 the second time, everything is going to go to 0. When I plug x in, all of this t stuff just becomes x's. And this is one of the questions they asked me to find. Here's the first, second, third, and fourth term. There's the first 4 non-zero terms. Okay, now the part that I think is harder, this is the part that I saved for the end. And honestly, you guys might have to help me out a little bit here, because I generally take several minutes to try to do it carefully. Try to find the general term. So, one way you could do it that I think is a mistake most of the times, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's alright, but you could say, let me start off from whatever, n equals 1 to infinity, and then you can try to come up with a formula so that if you plug 1 into it, you get x. But if you plug 2 into it, you get this stuff. And if you plug 3 into it, you get this stuff. And if you plug 4 into it, it's got to give you this stuff. That's kind of tough to do. So my recommendation, and you don't have to do this between now and Wednesday, but my recommendation is going to be eventually, so by the end of the week, I will also ask you to memorize this part, the series notation part, because our question, cosine, if we know what cosine looks like, that gives us a good starting point. So cosine is an, okay, they'd start off at 0 here, is an alternating And then to make sure it's always even, it's x to the 2n, and it's over 2n factorial. But we need the integral of that to the 6th. Integrate that to the 6th. So cosine of, I'm going to call it t. T to the 3rd. Let me replace the x's with t to the 3rds. So t to the 3rd to the 2n. We could multiply that and get
Is this supposed to be t to the 6th?
t to the 6th, yeah. That makes more sense. So t to the 6th to the 2n would be t to the 12n, power to a power. And then down here, this would be 2n. So again, if you memorize this one, which I will ask you to do at some point, changing the x's to t's is just change the x to t's and replace it for t to the 6th. So that replaces the exponents. And then the last thing is we can worry about the integration part. Which is where we're just trying to undo the power rule. So how do we undo the power rule? Okay. Right. Add 1 to the power and do what else? Divide by the new power. And then times the stuff that was already there. And there's the answer. So again, it can be a little formulaic if you memorize this and you make an intermediate and I'm not having a stroke, I'm just thinking real hard. Incremental change. There we go. Incremental change. If you make a small incremental change, x to t to the 6th, and then another incremental change. Don't try to do it all at once. But again, the derivative stuff is just power rule. It looks more complicated. The integration stuff, same thing. You're undoing power rule. I raised the power by 1, and I divided by the new power. Otherwise, it was the same as the step before it. So the actual thoughts and process is not as hard as it looks, but you're not going to feel comfortable with it till you get all the practice in. Okay, Diego, that was yours. Did you have something you want me to touch on again?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody else going to ask about 3 wants to ask something specific there? I will say, and maybe y'all disagree with me, just kind of glancing at question 4. Of course, some of these questions are not much fun, and of course, and if you make a mistake, having to try to find your mistake or redo the questions also not much fun. But in my opinion, I feel like these multiple choice questions are usually pretty easy. Did y'all feel that way? Because like if you just memorize the sine and cosine power functions, which you need to do by Wednesday if you haven't already done it yet, you can see that's not either one of those. It takes you 5 seconds to narrow it down to 50-50. So, and I'm assuming that they base these off of AP questions. So, okay, so let me open it up to anything. So those of you that didn't struggle till the end have a chance to ask also. I'm happy to take anything through the first 16. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few more minutes to make sure that you really are okay, because I know I'm kind of cutting you off here quickly. I need to grade your homework so I can give these back to you, especially since you need to look them over for your 5-point quiz on Wednesday. So let me do that for a couple minutes, and then I will offer to work any of the 16 questions for you again.
I saw that 62 and 63 are in grade period, but they're not. I haven't turned them in, but I didn't remember a time that we were supposed to turn them in. Have you asked for them yet?
63, I've not asked for anybody. 62, I don't remember, to be honest. I'll give you full points for them. So
Okay, do you want
I
me
was
to give you
go-
both right now,
Yeah,
or just
that's fine.
okay?
Yeah, I'll bring them back to you.
Okay,
with
then.
these.
I have it on my notebook. Do you want me to like cut it out or something?
No,
Just it's like 3 pages.
3 pages. That'd be a lot of work.
I don't know. I just
That looks good. I'll put it in right now.
appreciate
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, this summer's so nice.
It was nice outside. It's the right temperature for me. The air quality being what it is not good for my body.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to go out on Saturday.
Huh?
You weren't supposed to go outside on Saturday.
Yeah, I stayed inside. Didn't leave my house at all.
I called my mom after lunch on Saturday. I was like, y'all need to be staying in. Don't sit outside today because the air quality. And she's like, oh, I went to a T-ball game in Bentonville this morning. Like, well, shouldn't have done that.
You got dust all up in your throat, your lungs. Dust lungs.
I don't know why they didn't cancel the. It was like a Pee Wee League baseball game. They let those kids play in that stuff.
Yeah, it was a whole front of us. You don't know this.
Yes, bro. I know. Yo, if they ever gave me that, I'd have 20 I'd do it. Salt that up real quick, like, it doesn't look like what you think it would. It's fine. I watched the whole video online, and I forgot.
Like 45 grades. I have 147 hours of this stuff. It went up 40 hours since last time.
Nothing close to how long I've spent in
Like around,
forever.
you get it? Yeah. It's like around.
Yeah, let me know when you get to 5,000 hours.
think I've got like
That's my Dota 2.
I think I have like 60 hours right now. 'Cause, like, didn't play it for very long. Whatever. So I stopped having access to my computer for a while. But I kept my computer back on last day of high school. And then I had it forever after that. So
We're just gonna bring the charges on seven.
it's like 12 bucks. I don't know if it's worth it. It's a good game. I was like,
I don't know. This is a sale.
yeah, it is on sale. But
I was just gonna go back there and just stay that way. I haven't seen it, so.
I know Diego's not looking at a Steam sale.
Go to the,
Let's get refocused. Here, to here,
smells just like until I accidentally.
I haven't, I was making notes and checking in the
Maybe you're the son after.
Oh, wait.
Regular coffee or something. Felt warm.
Calvin this morning was talking about how impressed he was with your basic camp.
It's just for.
He didn't think you could do that well, I guess. Wow.
He asked if how 1B ruins my chance of getting to.
Oh, no, you had some of this on notebook paper, so. We'll finish it and I give you half your points.
Like 1B, AB.
Okay, I am getting some kind of shirt pains here, so if I have to run out of the room, I might go through it, but don't worry about me if I do. So I gave you a few more minutes to kind of scan your 10.15 just to make sure that you had asked the questions you wanted help with. Is that still the case? Okay, then what I'm going to do is, well, first, there's a couple reminders that you might actually want to write down. We won't be in this class on Wednesday. You've got the mini quiz on Wednesday that you probably want to look over your stuff, even if just for a few minutes. And the only assignment I'm taking up on Wednesday, I know there's other ones that we're going to get to, but the 10.15 is the only one I'm going to take up. So make sure you have it done if you want full points for your homework. I am going to, let's see, 3:15. Okay, I am going to give you guys about 20 minutes here where you can keep looking over your 10.15 / studying your 10.15 / looking over your 10.14 / studying for your mini quiz, whatever. But I would like for a couple minutes before you guys go to kind of at least talk generally about 10.13, which will be our focus in class on Wednesday. But if you hear a little bit of it today and then hear it again on Wednesday, then I think he'll just absorb that a little bit better. So, again, I'll give you about 20 minutes to kind of let you work on what you're working on. And then I will ask you for about 10 or 15 minutes of your time at the end of class for 10:13. I think 10.12 was the last or the first one that I missed with y'all, so we should, before spring break, at least be able to have some time to discuss those together. And then that way, when you come back from spring break, we can focus just on reviewing and taking some small quizzes and such for your grades, things like that.
I read the problem wrong. I was just asking to divide it if the length of it can divide it
It is. The side is less curved than like a weird if it's more
Yeah, I just looked at there's
Like an actual?
positive and negative.
You wanna read it?
It depends on the curvature of the.
1200 is the new standard. It's so fun.
Skip it.
Skip it.
Being the signal, it's you're like a cunt. The math is perfect. Wow.
That's what we do in the future.
If it's really thick, then we'll have to divergence.
Yeah, it just. That's not right.
Okay, I'm just going to the bathroom for a second. Okay.
It's the one I actually saw. But the name is just so stupid. Get up.
Whoever did it is a really funny guy. He says Sigma is going to be unironic too. Which is obviously funny. Right? Like it says Sigma, so like,
Well, no, I mean, I don't understand.
oh, like you're rearranging the given string, they're like bigger than arrays.
Yeah, that's what I.
So like, let's say this, you can either order it 6144 or 4461. So you want to order in a way such that this expression is maximized, basically. So there's obviously n factorial ways to arrange it, right? Because combinatorial. So out of that n factorial ways, you're going to have the best one. But if you just test every single one in factorial time complexity, it's way too slow. So you can't just do that. Answer remote sorting. Just the word. Yeah, that's what it's like.
Are you living in?
Tried it.
That's why I think it should.
It's just picking up on this.
Wait, they're the same temperature?
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
They have a certain
How long
radius?
is
Yeah,
Probably like that.
same compacted.
That's not in physics.
When you start doing this?
Was that daily?
What? Because I haven't been doing this. I just find random
I think it
ones.
said DB. I was like, what is DB? That pace.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like that
Is it
pacing.
because it's thin? Is that it's like 21% thin? Like, it's the same slope. pretty much.
The day was something you used to totally be low right now. I can only do bronze, bro. Well, I guess I can try it. Do you think I have silver on that?
Yes. Well, that one guy told me he was a used to be silver. If he didn't even know, it's just like.
What did he solve?
Oh, they got the other one. Yeah.
That's like the main one. The Patrick got it.
What? Different.
That one is just the ones. I was in the eight.
Up to 20.
Yes.
Something in that one. Wait, that's.
Better than Python?
Yeah, it depends on some problems. Like the solution of a
Okay, so
certain
then-
complexity will get rejected and Python will not.
I'll prefer to C++ from Java.
Yes.
See, it's similar.
But that's different, because
It's
it's,
pretty.
No, they're the same curvature. No. I know, I aligned the circles, put the circles on top of each other. and
Okay, I gotta
moved
accept.
it.
That's good.
Like, here's what I
You
did.
should if they're even though.
oh, I see.
Like I first made one circle.
What physics
See, and I
started.
did control V.
Uh-huh.
What? Like how long did it take?
Okay, anyways, and then I make a second circle.
I just reread it. I just read it wrong because I thought it was just take the length and then divided by 2.
Align it.
So I was freaking out.
And then I did it right a little bit.
What?
I used the eraser tool.
Okay.
And then we found. Okay.
The normal, those different stupid, slope.
The hardest ones.
A
Yeah, the
little bit,
easiest.
it's a little bit
The
different.
eight.
It's a lot of something.
It's under problem
It
separate.
should be different, like this little.
Yeah, but actually, it took me like 15 minutes the first time I opened it.
How do you?
They're not exactly parallel.
800 to 800?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be slightly.
They are. Choose that is not.
Yeah.
New array. Let's take this. Skim this in Ohio. Skim this in Marseille.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first.
Wait, I'm gonna do skip this in Ohio.
It's fine.
Wait, remember saying about
Leave it
that's
as
like,
that one.
there's like, there were three,
Skip this,
there's like
skip
a
this.
list, right, I'm forgetting last name. But the answer was N1 is equal to N3.
Wait, no, that's true.
Yeah, so in that case, for two boundaries work for work, okay?
They were.
And the first one, yeah, so the fraction of the first was
Oh,
the third one. So that's why the lines stay parallel.
What's wrong?
In that case, the normal is the same slope. So the first and third were the same. Like here, the rules are different.
Okay, maybe my diagram is not very good because I didn't calculate
No,
exactly.
I mean, theoretically, it's a little bit different.
Wait. But,
Right?
okay, we can use numbers if you want to.
Well, we don't have to do the numbers. The normal will have a different slope than over here.
Yeah.
So then, the function
I don't know. I'm looking at this question.
So,
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the reason. That's in lines of observation.
then why in that situation, so we got a pretty big lens and then
Okay, about 5 more minutes, and then I'll ask for your attention for a couple more minutes, please. Again, you got about 5 minutes, though.
It's also the reason why the thing that goes through the center and the line that goes through the center is through the center.
well, that would happen no matter how big the lens is. The normal
No, but no, like,
Oh. So you can do this on the That's the goal.
like the lens that goes through the center of the the line that goes through the center, but not perpendicular, like in an angle. Because it's really thin. It's scary.
This is my word.
What? By the way, people know what's asking.
Didn't do this.
Can you translate this?
Yeah.
Just give me the.
Of course. Did you not read the test cases?
But yeah, I don't know what's.
Like if the thing was like C B B A A, then we could take A A, change it to B, and have C B B B. We could take B B at the end and then change it to a B.
Oh, so it's saying how many I can choose?
It's saying the minimum possible length of the string after you do that any number of times. Well, obviously you just do the maximum number of times to get the minimum length because you're subtracting.
Wait, so if it's A, A, B, B, replace the A with well, you delete the, wait.
Basically, you just take the duplicate, change it into one letter. But you can choose which letter.
Okay. So what is the output?
One, like the minimum links
Wait,
that you can make.
because if it's BAA, you can take the A out. That would be link 2.
You can change both the A's to a B and then change both of these to anything. Because the B's are duplicates as well after the first 3.
Wait, CC, you can change it. What about Ohio? It's still
Because they're not adjacent duplicates.
oh, it's adjacent duplicates. Goes in. Are you sick with
That's my SES, right?
sustaining while you're talking? What? Are you serious?
Because they took teenagers to sexual work.
Okay, that's like,
That is kind of
That is
yeah.
It's because Patrick exists. Yeah,
yeah, that's all yours. Who's gonna die? No, no, no.
Fast enough for weird. For whoever wrote that round needs to be like, I don't know.
Wait, if it's BAA. Wait, so if it's duplicate, you can change it to whatever.
It's like only one letter. So you take the 2 and then output one letter if you're choosing. So BAA becomes BB, which then becomes like MC, which is one.
Okay, if you would, please give me your attention here for just a couple more minutes. I want to, even though our main focus, or first focus on Wednesday, we'll be talking about 10.13, there's enough time here that I can at least kind of explain the process a bit, so those of you that struggled getting going on some of those questions have something that you could at least move forward on between now and then. So 10.13 is not about whether something converges or diverges, but rather when does it converge or diverge. So the radius is a way to describe like how much convergence it has, and an interval is a way to describe when it converges. So when you get to this, there's 3 of these things you'll have to know. This stuff should look very familiar. This is essentially the ratio test. And when you did the ratio test, you did this, and if it was less than 1, it converged, and otherwise it diverged. But in this one, we're talking about when it converges. So if we do the ratio test, make it less than 1, if it's less than 1, after we do the limit, then that is when it's going to converge on an interval. So I'm going to do one example for you. That's the most common one. If, when you do the limit, it forces all of this to go to 0, even though there's probably some x stuff too, but the limit of the n stuff, if it forces this to go to 0, then it converges. Do y'all remember? All right, for all x values. And if this limit forces this fraction to go to infinity, it only converges at the center, x equals c, which is usually 0, but it doesn't have to be 0. So the one example I want to do for you here, again, just in case you had trouble even starting these, I'm going to look at question 1 with you. So I guess you should have already checked your work to it, so you probably know if you did it correctly or not. But if it says find the interval of convergence, the radius is the easy part. If you can find the interval, like if the interval is whatever, 0 to 6, then the radius is 3, because it's like it could swing 3 this way or 3 that way, basically. The radius is the easy part. Okay, so for all of these questions, you're going to start off by doing the limit as n approaches infinity of the absolute value less than 1 every single time, basically. And at first, you do a sub n plus 1. So everywhere there's an n, you do an n plus 1. Then you're supposed to divide it by a sub n, but it's more convenient to think about multiplying by the reciprocal of a sub n. Remember, this is what we're referring to as a sub n. Okay, and then if you were struggling, I think there's probably a good chance it was in this simplifying, because there's a lot going on here, and if you just willy-nilly start canceling stuff out, you might lose something. So I don't normally do this extra step here, but I think it's good maybe to do this for a while until you feel a little more comfortable with it. But I've got an n plus 1. Instead of calling this x minus 5 to the n plus 1, call it x minus 5 to the n and x minus 5 to the first. Likewise, this 3 to the n plus 1 is like 3 to the n times 3 to the first. Again, it doesn't hurt you to expand it like that, and mentally that's what you need to be thinking about anyway. And then right before you worry about the limit, get some of this stuff to cancel out. 3n divided by 3n goes away. I'm just going to erase it so that it makes it even easier to see. But those divide out. I've got an x minus 5 to the n and an x minus 5 to the n. So those cancel out. And then I'm left with very little other stuff. So if you worry about the limit next, the limit only affects the n values. So just worry about the n stuff. The limit as n goes to infinity of n plus 1 over n, what does that go to? Just 1, right? Use your horizontal asymptote rules. If the degrees are equal, leading coefficient over leading coefficient. So the limit part just goes to 1, and so you are left with an x minus 5 over 3. The absolute value of that has to be less than 1. Now, this actually has to split up into 2 parts, the same way that the absolute value of x equals 2 doesn't just have one answer. Either this stuff could equal the other side, or it could equal the opposite of the other side. Same thing with this. Bless you. This could be less than 1, or it could be greater than negative 1. With inequalities, or absolute value inequalities, you need to make sure that this is bigger than negative 1, because if this is bigger than negative 1, the absolute value of that is still less than 1, as long as it's less than 1. Okay, then you get to solve this like an equation. It's just that it has 3 sections instead of 2 sides. Multiply everything by 3, add 5 to everything, okay, now I do have to do a little bit more work before I circle this as my interval, but if the question was just to find the radius, you don't care about the endpoints. If it's 2 to 8, what would the radius be? Yes, 3. Because this total, it's like this, you can think of it like a number line. Here's 2, here's 8, here's the center. this distance and this distance represent the radius. They have to be equidistant. So that's why the radius is 3. So if it just asks for the radius, you're done. If it asks for the interval, you have to do one extra thing. What do I have to do before I can circle this? Good. You have to check these endpoints. You might have to include 2 and you might have to include 8. So to check to see if you should include 2, plug 2 up into the original problem. Everywhere there's an x, plug in a 2. And then you need to figure out if this converges or diverges. I'm going to combine this stuff into, these are both to the n power, so I could combine them into a single fraction. Negative 3 over 3 is like negative 1. Okay, does this converge or diverge? Okay, it's fine that you're hesitating, but notice if I just start plugging in a couple values, you're going to figure it out pretty fast. If I plug in 1, I get negative 1. If I plug in 2, I get 2. If I plug in 3, I get negative 3. Do you see how this is never going to converge to a number? So just doing a few figures out that this diverges, which means you do not include 2. It should not have an equal to sign. If this converged, you would include it. Okay, and then you basically do the exact same thing with 8. X equals 8. Plug it into the original question, just in for x. 3 to the n divided by 3 to the n goes away. So if I'm doing this series here and this is just n, does this converge or diverge? Diverges. Plug in 1, you get 1. Plug in 2, you get 2. Plug in 3, you get 3. Those are not going to converge to a number. Those are going to diverge. So I would not include 8 either. So that's how you get the interval and how you check the endpoints. So in all of this, the most practice probably is really these couple steps here. The limit as n approaches infinity of the absolute value of a sub n plus 1 divided by a sub n needs to be less than 1. Maybe expand some of that stuff out like I did, cancel some stuff out, do the limit of the n stuff. If the limit of the n stuff makes the whole fraction go to 0, you can just quit and say that the radius is infinity and the interval is for all x values. And if it forces that limit to go to infinity, you know it just converges at c. And if it doesn't do either one of those, like there's no n's or the limit goes to 1 like we saw, then it's going to be one of these, and then you just solve your inequality. So I know that's pretty rushed, but if you had trouble, I don't think that these are harder, but I don't struggle with this step too much. I can pretty carefully cancel like 3 to the n to 3 to the n plus 1. Like I can do that without making mistakes for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe I practiced this more in college. I don't remember. But if you struggled with that, you might try to do a few more before Wednesday just to see if that helps, or to try to have some specific questions ready to go. Okay, so before I shut up, is there anything you want to ask or add to this? Just one quick example. Did y'all think this was harder than 1014, 1015, or easier? Easier? Okay. I thought it was a little bit easier too, but my first period, I think most of them thought that this was harder. So again, I don't know. I just at y'all's mercy. Tell me what. All right. So you still got about 12 minutes here. So surely you've got something that you could be making some progress on. Obviously, I'd be happy to help you if you find something, but I think that's all I've got for you.